Okay then folks, let's start how we're going to create this repeat pattern, this wallpaper looking pattern. Right, we need to start a new document. So on the right hand side, we need to make this a square for a repeat pattern. So can I suggest 400 pixels by 400 pixels. I personally like to make everything at least 300 dots per inch. I think that gives you the ultimate quality. So 400 by 400 and resolution 300. Let's create a new document. Right, okay, so so first thing we need to do, when you've thought of the sort of patterns that you want to create, you can create any patterns that you want from anything. I would suggest, if we're looking at Yayoi Kusama, then we're probably going to be looking polka dots, things like that. We're probably going to be looking at nets and that sort of thing. But just for the sake of this, let's have a go at creating some nice patterns. Okay, so on your left hand side where you've got the ellipse tool, you may have custom shapes tool. I'm going to use a custom shape for this. I've chosen from my custom shapes just a basic flower head design. That's absolutely fine. Make sure your stroke is either 0 if you don't want anything or any sort of stroke on it, or I'd keep it at a minimal. Right, so to start with, let's get a design onto the screen and let's get this centered. Right, so how can we center this? Well, there's a couple of ways that we can center this. Now you've got the, so right, say we just put it completely over to one side. Not really bothered. Doesn't have to be at the moment. On your layers panel at the bottom, you'll see background layer is locked. Take off that lock. Now select the two layers. So hold down shift and press the other layer. So if you're on the background layer like that, hold down shift, press the other layer, and then that selects two layers. Now if you have a little look at the very top of the screen, you've got all these controls for alignment. So let's go centrally align along the vertical axis, centrally align along the horizontal axis, and this will line the two images up against each other. So right, when we've got our patterning of something that we want, something that looks nice, something like that, I'm just giving you the very basic example. What we want to do is these two layers, we want to merge them. So select them both, right click, merge layers. This gives us one single layer. Make sure the lock is off. Now we're going to turn it into some sort of pattern. So I would suggest go to filter, other, and offset. So filter, other, offset. Now this should offset it by half the width of your artboard. So because we started off with 400 pixels by 400 pixels, if this doesn't read 200 pixels automatically in here, you want to select and put 200 in each of this box. So 200 and 200 exactly. So this moves it 200 pixels to the right and 200 pixels down. Click OK. And this has split our central image. This is split it into four areas. So now let's take another one of our shapes. So for our other shape, let's go for another a flower, something like, let's go for something like this. Right, I might give it a slightly different colour. So let's pick something like that. And again, want to get it central, so again select them two layers, align center, and then they bang in the center. I'd maybe say take this one down a bit, so holding Alt, then you could move up and down, select OK. Right, so just for a very basic pattern, this is the sort of thing that we've got. Now again, shift to select both layers, right click, merge layers. Now we've got a whole image is there already. Right, so now what do we do? So we go edit, define pattern. So what we're going to call this, I've already created one called flowers, so I'm going to call this flowers 2. I call one flowers just in the preparation for this, just to make sure everything's all working, because I've got the brand new version of Photoshop and some things are a little bit different. I may go through them with you as the time comes, any differences. But yeah, for the moment we're going to call that pattern flowers 2. Okay, right now, so let's test out to see if our patterns are working. So let's click File, New. Let's just select an A4, create, and that's created our A4 page. So edit, fill, got pattern. It may come up initially when you're on saying foreground colour. So click on the drop down, go down to pattern, and there's my initial one, and there's flowers 2. Select that, flowers 2, and you want OK, and that has put in our pattern over the top. Yeah, so now it works. We've got this like basic repeat pattern that can work across multiple formats. So let's have a go at attaching this to a shape. So if I do something like, right, let's fill this image, but let's fill it with my background colour. Okay, so my background colour is black, so you've got a completely black screen there. Maybe take this up a notch or two. So there we go. Now if you're wanting to attach it to something like a mushroom shape, I'm sure you'll be able to draw your own, find your own and import it, but for the sake of this I'm just going to use a standard ellipse. Now we've got our standard ellipse in the same sort of colour. It's not really doing much, don't worry about it. Right, so when you've got your ellipse on the right hand side, I want you to right click ellipse and go up to the top and click blending options. Now when your blending options come up, one of the things you can do is pattern overlay. So that's my original one. Go to your pattern overlay, scroll down and find your pattern that you want to cover it with and click OK. Now this is just a basic way of masking it to the shape. I'll show you one more trick though that you can do that might just want to bring it a little bit to life. So now if you click on the background layer on the bottom right hand side and click add to add a new layer. Now select the new layer the new layer has to be completely transparent. Select that and ellipse, layers, then right click, and we're going to merge layers. So this is, yeah, it's a destructive method. There are non-destructive methods such as like creating smart objects, that sort of thing. But for this, just for the sake of this, we'll do create a destructive method. So we're going to, so you'll see if you turn off the background, then you have this lovely ellipse with the pattern stuck to it. And yeah, that's a destructive method. So from this we could do such things. I'll just show you one of them. One way we can make this give it a bit of life. Let's hit the liquify effect. So liquify brings this up. I would suggest doing things like the bloat tool. So if you select on the bloat tool, make sure your bloat tool might come out something like this, and you might end up with, oh no, it's not really working. What I'd do at that point, look at the size of the bloat tool, maybe even the pressure, but certainly the size. I'd get it something like that, and then we just hold the left mouse button on, and your repeat pattern suddenly starts bloating out. Let's see if we can, and again, click OK. Now our repeat pattern is giving it a whole nice new 3D effect. Okay, if there's anybody who has any questions or anything on this, I'm more than happy to go through any more of the examples with them. But for now, I'd like you to return to Photoshop and create your piece inspired by Yayoi Kusama. I always say that wrong. Look at her colour palettes. Look at the types of shapes she uses. Look at the types of patterns she uses. Give me something that's going to blow me away. I'm sure you can do it. If you need any help, please give me a shout. Okay, thanks a lot, folks.